Hey there, I'm Ann Teagarden, and this is episode 107 of the Unveiled podcast. Thanks for joining me today. So, I wanted to continue in this series on the keys to healthy relationships. And again, there are many keys, I'm just highlighting a few. But one of the ones today that I wanted to highlight goes with this topic of how do you get past the constant fighting? Hopefully, you're not in that place, but I know there are many women and men out there that are tired of fighting with their spouse. Seems like they fight over and over again about the same topics and don't really get anywhere. And I think they think, well, if only the other person understood what I'm trying to say or what I need, then it would fix everything. And the other one's thinking the same thing. If they would only do such and such, then everything would be fine. But clearly, this doesn't solve the problem, right? We can talk about it over and over, but nothing changes. And that, my friends, is the definition of insanity: doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. So if it's not working, you got to do something different, right? But what? Well, when I find myself unhappy in my relationship with my husband, and I think he's just not getting it, he's not understanding, then I know what I have to do. And that is go to God. And that is the key. Now, first, I used to go to God and I would say, would you fix my husband? And can you do it right away, please? But that didn't really work, of course. God is more interested in my heart than he is in fixing the problem. And why is that? Because he knows that when I'm healed and when I change, then it changes the relationship. So I've mentioned in the past how a few summers ago, I was feeling very distant from my husband. I was not happy with him. I didn't personally think he was prioritizing well or treating us the way that I wanted him to. And I went to the Lord about it. And God spoke to me, of course, not about him, but about me, and about a bunch of ugly resentment in my heart toward my husband and toward my in laws who were dealing with some health issues and we were helping them. But Jesus is so very loving and very gentle when he shows us our sin. But he's also clear and helps us to deal with it if we're willing. So once I was willing and once I saw it, and I was not proud of that, believe me, I confessed to Jesus and I asked him to come in and heal the wounds that were causing that resentment. And I let it go. And my relationship took a dramatic turn for the better after that. I was now on my husband's team instead of opposing him. And it made a huge difference in how I felt toward him. But I tell you what, he did not change at all, only me. Often I found we have to confess judgments that we've made against the other person. And sometimes I've even made ungodly vows that are operating and affecting my relationship. A few months ago, I was speaking with a woman that confessed she did not want to spend another day with her roommate. Okay, she was just tired of the situation and very unhappy. She didn't feel respected. She didn't feel cared for. She was tired of getting run over. So as she was telling me all of this, I heard a lot of judgments against the roommate coming out of her mouth and a number of past events that sounded like there was still a wound there in her heart that hadn't been healed. So we went through those. We asked Jesus to come in and heal those wounds and take those negative feelings. And then she confessed the judgments that she'd made against this other woman and asked for forgiveness, and then also forgave her roommate. Well, it was interesting that a few days later, she called me and said that they were getting along really well. And a few days ago, I saw her again, and she mentioned how she and her roommate had been getting along for the past few months. And I did point out that I think it was related to the work that God did in her heart a few months ago that made the difference. And she agreed. The roommate never changed. Okay. It was this other woman that changed, and that changed the relationship. You have to make that connection. And I know you're thinking, yeah, but it won't work in my situation. You don't understand what I'm dealing with. No, I don't. But God does. And I can assure you that he wants things fixed in your heart, okay, whether or not it solves your relationship problems. The key here is intimacy with Jesus, okay? That's really what he wants. When we prioritize our relationship with him, then he does the work that's needed inside of us. When we spend daily time with him, he works inside of our hearts. And when we listen to him speaking to us, he gives us healing. He shows us strategies for how to move forward. We can't actually change anyone, and we have to accept that. We can only change ourselves. So think about how hard it is to change yourself, to get rid of a bad habit or change a behavior. And then think, if I struggle to change me, how in the world will I change another person's behavior? In all my years of marriage and parenting, I can honestly say that each and every time I changed me, then my situation improved. Now, it may not have been 100% solved, but it improved noticeably. And Jesus told us rather plainly in one of the verses that we probably like to skip over in the Bible all about this. In Matthew 7, 1-5, it says, "Do not judge, or you too will be judged. For in the same way you judge others, you will be judged. And with the measure you use, it will be measured to you. Why do you look at the speck of sawdust in your brother's eye and pay no attention to the plank in your own eye? How can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' when all the time there is a plank in your own eye? You hypocrite. First take the plank out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to remove the speck from your brother's eye." Kind of makes sense, doesn't it? Jesus tells us first work on our own eyes so that we can see clearly to help the other person. Help them, not fix them. Okay, get the distinction there. We need to be able to see the other person in the relationship problem and to see the problem through God's eyes. And we need to say, "God, how do you see this?" I learned early in my marriage that almost always both of us were at fault for whatever conflict had come about, right? It was not all me, it wasn't all him. But all I could really do was own up to my part and apologize and ask forgiveness. But honestly, the only way I'm really ever going to be able to do that is if I go to God first and let him work on my heart. I like to sit with him in the secret place and just pour out my heart and my troubles and allow him to bring healing to those wounds. And then he gently shows me my part. And then I'm able, out of that intimacy and that healing, to go work things out with my husband. So the bottom line of all of this is you start with Jesus. Set aside the relationship problem for a moment and seek intimacy with the Lord. Okay, that could be worshiping him, praising him, giving him thanks, spending time with him in a two-way conversation. Surrender your troubles to him and open up your heart and allow him to come in and bring healing and perspective. And I love to begin with Matthew 11:28. "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." So if you're tired of fighting, come to Jesus and rest. Rest in him. He is gentle and kind. He doesn't start out by showing us the plank in our eye. He begins by healing our soul, and he pours his healing oil over our wounds, and he comforts us in all our troubles. So this week, instead of stressing about your earthly relationships, come and sit at the feet of Jesus and just sit a while. Prioritize your intimacy with him and seek his face, seek his heart. Picture yourself in your favorite place with Jesus in your mind, and then listen to what he's speaking in your heart. Write it down as he speaks so that you can go and refer back to it. And you can evaluate, is that really him speaking to me? His words are comfort and truth. They're never condemnation and confusion. That's an important distinction to make. So do this experiment, if you will. Change your heart and mind and see how it affects your relationship. A friend of mine likes to teach that we all have hooks. And when these hooks grab onto each other, that's what makes for this wrestling back and forth. But the Holy Spirit can help us get rid of our hook, okay? And then the other person's hook has nothing to grab onto. And that's why the dynamic begins to change in the relationship and can end up solving the problem. If we apologize to them, that may help their hook go away as well, or it may not. But it's worth experimenting, so give it a try. And I'll leave you with this verse to ponder, Romans 12:2. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Then you will be able to test and approve what God's will is, his good, pleasing, and perfect will. So again, that transformation of our mind starts with intimacy with Jesus. It's the only way to change our pattern. Otherwise, we just default to the world's pattern, right? Which is complaining, demanding our way. But instead, we can allow Jesus to renew our minds and be able to see what God's will is in our situation. And then we do his will and we watch things improve. So if you have a problem, go to God, have that intimacy with him, and say, what's next? Okay. And as things begin to improve a little bit, we'll be energized to continue that process and go back to God and allow him to do more in us and ask him what to do about the situation. God's really been doing this with me over the past month with my relationship with my son. I've seen it improve quite a bit as my hooks are falling away. And then if I find that we're doing this again, I say, oh, there's another hook. And I ask God, what is this hook? What is the root of this hook? And how do we get rid of it? And then I spend the time working through it with the Lord. So if you want to try this and you don't fully understand what I'm trying to say, then feel free to contact me and I'll walk you through it. You can contact me at ann@synergiamm.com, which is ANNE@SYNERGIAMM.com. I hope to hear from you. I hope to hear reports of how your relationship changed when you went to the Lord and allowed him to change you first. So that's our key for today. Intimacy with God, going to him to figure out what we need to change. That is the key. I hope this blesses you. I hope you put it into practice. Have a beautiful and wonderful week and share this with someone you love. Go enjoy in peace.